Good morning and welcome to Garden with Peggy. In the lower corner of the screen, you can see little Alfie while he was just there. But Kusa told me he was feeling neglected, that he hadn't been on the show in a while. So he asked me if he could please open the show with me today. So I said, of course, yes, he could. And he is, very experienced in this. I mean, look at that face. That's quite a face. And also very symbolic that since his name is Kusa Dogwood and dogwoods are blooming, it seemed like now would be the perfect time for him to open the show with us. So a couple things. Please remember to like and subscribe, and that we're on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. Are we on Instagram? All that stuff. So any place you see it, if you could like it and subscribe to it, whatever, that would be helpful. We're up to what? 233 subscribers. Now the goal is 1,000. We have a ways to go. I admit we have a ways to go, but we're making progress. And apparently 1,000 is some sort of like magic number that algorithms change, and the powers that be in YouTube world will suddenly start paying more attention, and then everything should take off more quickly after that. So that is the plan. The number, if you want to call, 888-399-7344. And of course, we are making technological advances all the time. And, Tommy keeps improving. So I have to put him down. And I'm going to show you my new toy. Tommy bought me this. It is a keyboard in purple and pink and other lovely pastel colors. And it makes me think of those candy buttons. It makes me want to eat them. But the purpose of this is now I get to control my own slides. So instead of having to ask my husband to slide over, move to the next one, I just use the little arrow buttons over here, and I can change all my slides myself. So we are constantly striving to make things easier, more efficient, better. And remember that you can call in and ask questions. And if you send in to my website, which is gardenwithpeggy.com, you can send pictures, and I can then incorporate them into the show. So you can call in and I can then discuss with you the pictures on the air. Okay. So what are we going to do now? I can't start the pictures, right? You have to start them, and then I get to play with my magic buttons over here and go forward and backwards and all that. So I think it's sort of become somewhat traditional to start the week off with This Week at Tiny Farm. There's a lot going on this week at Tiny Farm, so that may take a while, but this is that's what we're going to do. And this is my Mandeville vine that I have overwintered, and it's supposed to move to the Ocean Grove house, but it's already flowering. And if you look very carefully, you can see that behind that flower is a couple more flower buds. So it overwintered really well in the greenhouse this year. Better than the last couple of years. Last couple of years I lost, different branches, and it died back and I had leaves falling off. But this year it did really, really well. So we will be moving it over there in the next couple of weeks, not taking any chances. Don't want it to get frosted. That would be miserable. So here it is. Yes, I know he's making hand signals to me that I can move my thing. Here we go. Okay. Now, what, you want me to move over this way? What do you want? Is this what you want? Jeez. Okay. All right. So I was in the woods. Boy, he's very much the dictator when it comes to this thing. So
the producer.
He's a producer. Oh yes, Cecil B. DeMille over there. So I was in the woods. I spent a bit of time in the woods this week, just cleaning up and planting things, and just I want the woods to be woods, but I want it to have I want it to be interesting woods, slightly tame, with things that maybe didn't occur there on their own, but maybe could occur on their own under certain circumstances. So I want woodland things in there, but I want it to be interesting. So I thought this was really interesting because this is a pink lily of the valley that I did not plant. It appeared on its own in the middle of a hosta, which I thought that was kind of fun. So it just kind of appeared on its own. And of course, there are hostas. And yes, I admit I have changed my opinion on hostas a little. I really don't like them generally, but they do have certain applications, and where other things won't grow, they are good. I'm lucky my woods does not have any deer because the whole place is fenced in. If you had deer, don't even bother with hosta because they're like, chocolate covered strawberries. And in the front of the house, I have all of these pink lily of the valley, and I believe the original ones were a present from Nancy, and they are finally gotten concentrated enough where they sort of make a statement. Lily of the valley can be used as a ground cover, and they can sometimes even get carried away, but the pink ones I think are so much cooler than the plain old white ones. So that's in the front of the house. Actually, if you look at me sitting there, that's in the front of the house, and these lily of the valley would be actually directly behind me in that other picture. Back in the woods, we have bleeding hearts, which I planted last year, and they're just so lovely. And yes, they have white ones, and those are lovely, but I don't know. It seems like if you're going to have a bleeding heart, that it should be pink. And columbines. This clump of columbine is probably 3 or 4 years old now, and it has come back every year. And I try to plant things in the woods in places where you're going to see them, not way back behind things. So there's a little planted area near the entrance to the woods, and it still looks pretty woodsy, but there's different things that pop up at different times, and this columbine is one of them. And this is on the edge of the woods. I have tried so hard to get rid of all the wisteria. There were miles and miles and miles of the roots and the rope-like vines running crisscross across the yard. Literally felt like miles. I would grab one and pull it. It would be running along the surface, and it would end up being 30 or 40 feet. And before I couldn't pull it up anymore. And then I would cut it or dig it out or something. But this one is growing along the edge of the woods over the fence. And if it's going to confine itself somewhat to the woods, I can live with it as long as it stays out of my backyard and my front yard. But it is beautiful. And my spirea, this is in my hedge, my triple colored hedge, the one that blooms yellow, then white, then red. Obviously, it's coming into the white phase. And the camassia. I love the camassia. The camassia is, can we make this bigger, please? The camassia is a native bulb, and it is considered a bulb. And it's very interesting because it, at one point, was really actually fought over by the American Indians. It was treasured not for the beautiful flowers, but because of the roots. And the roots, the tubers, were a staple for winter food, and that you could grind it and make a flour out of it and make a bread-like substance out of it. And so there were fields of this, and American Indians fought a war over who owned the area where the field was, because it was such an important part of their survival mechanism to store food for over the winter. Please do not dig yours up and eat them. And I'm saying that because there are other flowers that look very, very similar. And if you get the wrong ones, you're in serious trouble. But it is a lovely plant. And of course, for me, it's particularly treasured because this is one of the few things there was only 2 or 3 things we were able to salvage from around the house at Blooming Acres, and this was one of them. So Tommy dug up a couple, and we brought them here, and we were able to manage to get them established, and so they came from Blooming Acres. And that's a cute little azalea that's blooming now. Just a pretty little thing. And this is the other plant. This is a baptisia. And this one is covered in buds and will be opening soon. And this is the one that I was really worried about because, well, number one, it was very important since it also came from Blooming Acres. It's one of the two things. I don't think there's too much else that came from Blooming Acres that Tommy was able to dig up and he brought to me, and we planted it. And I was amazed that it survived because he dug it up in bloom. And it was like the only thing that came up in that bed. So the roots survived the fire. And it came up and it was blooming. It was the only thing that was just sticking there during reconstruction when they rebuilt everything. I never went back. And it survived. But this year we had to dig out the Harry Lauder's walking stick and it was in the same bed. And I was afraid that we may have destroyed this because I know we pulled out some of it. But there was enough of it to come back and it looks lush. It hasn't started to bloom yet, but you can see all those buds. It'll be blooming shortly. This is woodland poppy. And I have given up trying to contain this or get it to grow where I want it to grow. It grows where it wants to grow. It grows in the cracks. It grows in the rock wall. It grows wherever it wants to grow. And so, you know, where it's in a problematic spot, I will pull it out. But where it's growing and it's just, you know, softening the wall or softening the bricks, I just let it do its own thing. It's a pretty little plant. This is one of those weird alliums that I ordered this year. They were very expensive. It's kind of interesting. All of the alliums, first of all, they're blooming earlier than I expected. They're usually June bloomers, but I have several of them that are blooming now, which is early. And they're all struggling with the tips of the foliage being like that. Now, I'm not sure. The ground is not that dry and nothing else seems to be struggling. I'm wondering if it's the pH. And I say that because they're all in the blueberry bed and I do not lime the blueberry bed because I want to keep the pH a little bit on the acidic side to help the blueberries. So anything that is sensitive to that is just going to have to struggle because the blueberries are the main event in that bed. So we will, but they're blooming and they, you know, it's only, this is only about 8 inches tall. It's about bigger. The flower is this big. Can you see about that big? There's another shot, a side view of it. Interesting little thing. Big, wide leaves, also kind of unusual. And this is the other alliums that are blooming now. Again, they are not fully open, so I think they're going to get bigger as they get more Sputnik-y. But again, another allium blooming already, which is kind of surprising. Okay, so this isn't anything to get overly excited about. It's Vinca major as opposed to Vinca minor, periwinkle, myrtle. It's not the myrtle ground cover that grows everywhere that I have in a lot of different places, but it's a close relative. It's not quite as hardy, but seems to be doing well. And it's more vine-like as opposed to ground cover-like, and it's in the beds, but it's that beautiful color, same kind of flower, but bigger. And it's pretty and it's blooming now. So I like it. Is it my favorite thing? No, but as a ground cover, I prefer it to ivy, which is a nightmare, and pachysandra, which is like so ho-hum boring. I can't stand it. Some people like it, you know, it's like personal taste, but it gets these pretty purple flowers. And of course, purple is my favorite color. So this is my flowering quince. The bush itself is not particularly exciting. It's a little kind of rangy looking, but it's in front of the barn. And it's not as vivid red as the one I fell in love with at Mike's last week, but it is still a very pretty shade. And when I saw it blooming again, I was thinking, you know, I really should not go back and buy that one from Mike because it's close enough. And I really don't have a lot of room for duplicates. So, and I've had this one for quite a while. And it's in a good spot in front of the barn. And the red flowers do look lovely up against the purple barn. So we're going to stick with this one. But the flowers are beautiful. Okay, this is Uncle Fogey. And that's what it's called. It's not, you know, I do have some nicknames for some plants that I really like, but that's the name that this one came with. It's a very dwarf twisted, weeping, contorted evergreen. And it's really struggled because it, not every year, but like every other year, it gets pine sawflies, and sometimes it gets it worse than others, and then it gets defoliated, and then it has to struggle. I have to cut it back. I did some pruning on it this year to get rid of all the dead and the really straggly stuff, and then I mulched all around it. And look at the new growth on the tip there. That's pretty cool. So, I'm hoping that this might be the year that it really gets some oomph going. But also, see the brown things, those are called male cones, and that's what produces the pollen. And then, of course, it will pollinate the female cones, and they are developing. See that little teeny tiny purple spherical thing? It looks like it could be a bug. It's not. That is a cone, and it will develop into a cone. It's still very, very tiny, but it'll get pollinated, and so it's going to get pine cones, and it's going to get new crazy branches, and it's filling in. And so Uncle Fogey is, I think, this may be the year he comes into his own, and he stays small, which is good. That's good. The weeping pea shrub, the Siberian pea shrub, yay! I pruned it. I was really upset with how many broken branches were on it. The branches are so contorted and twisted and weeping and crossing over that when we moved it and tried to tie it a little bit so that it wouldn't get damaged en route home, I think, and we tried so hard. It was wrapped in burlap, and it was really carefully placed in the truck, and the two guys helped me, but so many branches were broken. And then we planted it, and we had that drought at the beginning of the summer, so we were watering it constantly, but still it was hot and the ground was dry, and my ground is so sandy. I was worried. I know I lost more branches, but I couldn't tell when I was losing the other branches. Was it primarily from transplant shock, or was it just more damage from having been moved? And when I went to prune it in the spring to just shape it after winter, I had more branches that had obviously been broken for a while, and they kind of gave up the ghost of the winter. So this was the ultimate shape. But look, it has flowers. I didn't think it would get flowers its first year. Now, it's not as many flowers as I have seen it, or the ones I've had in the past, but it is leafing out. Everything that's left looks healthy. There's no more damaged wood on it, and it's flowering. So it took me 5 years to find this. Finally found it last year. Paid a ridiculous amount of money for it, but I was like doing my happy dance, and it looks like it's all going to come together, and it was worth it. It's so beautiful. So I'm very, very, very pleased that it's doing so well. The weeping Siberian pea shrub. Now, there are non-weeping varieties. The non-weeping varieties are actually grown. They can be used as a hedge, and they can be used to produce the seed pods that are used as food, mostly for chickens, but they can be used as food. So it has a commercial application, as well as being one of my favorite trees. Fothergilla, that's Fothergilla, Fothergilla, is now blooming. And remember, not only does it bloom and make these cute, bottle brush type flowers, but it's all the Fothergillas are spectacular for fall color. And the Carolina sweet shrub is also blooming. Now, this is beautiful, and it's got quite a few flowers. This was the most perfect one I could find to photograph and show you. You want to know what the disappointing part is? They were famous for their scent, but the flowers were small. Now the flowers are big and dramatic and really lovely. They don't smell. At least this one doesn't. So the scent is gone. And if anybody has one that smells really good, that would be fun. You could try propagating it. But this one doesn't have very much of a scent. They were actually used, the flowers were dried and used as potpourri. And, you would just throw them down south, ladies would throw them in their lingerie drawer and make everything smell nice and fresh and pretty. But as beautiful as these are, no scent. And the banana trees are growing. Yes. So, this was another sort of experiment. I had grown them once before and they did not come back. And then we found them, kind of very robust looking plants in pots. I don't know where we were. We were on one of those places on Route 130 and they had them. And I was like, okay, let's try them again. These look, really viable. Plus they had mature ones on the property that they had for like 10 years. So that was also encouraging. So here they are. And I have 5 of them and they're all doing very well. Okay. This is not on my property. I won't plant these things, but they are blooming at this time of year. So this was actually at my doctor's office. I had an appointment and I saw them and they're cherry laurels or skip laurels and they're evergreen and they're used as hedges and people shear them and they get all these flowers and they don't do it for me. They just, yes, they flower. Maybe they're overused. Maybe I get sick of seeing them because they're stuck in so many places, but and they are pretty easy, low maintenance, but I think they're overused but they're blooming now. So I wanted to show you. And this is a little jasmine vine that I planted not last year, but the year before. And this is the first year it's blooming. So it survived the winter and it's growing on the inside of the fence in the Garden of Ancient Ruins. And it's blooming now. Okay, this is weirdness. Anne Marie, I hope you're watching because this is the popcorn plant it's not the edible popcorn plant. It's the smelly popcorn plant that when you rub the leaves, you get the smell of buttered popcorn. And nobody's bloomed last summer or very few. I think Bob from Piscataway got some flowers and got some seed. But for the most part, I grew a bunch of them and I didn't know anybody who's bloomed. So Anne Marie had hers growing in pots and she gave me the pots. And this is what it looks like in the pot. And I looked it up over the winter to see, was it worth trying to save in the greenhouse or was it just going to die? Was it like an annual? Well, it turns out it can be perennial in a warmer climate. So yes, it survived. Does it look totally weird? Absolutely. Totally weird. But it started to produce flowers in the greenhouse. So there it is. So I planted it in that bed to the right of where you can see the pot. It's in that bed. I planted it. I checked. We're not scheduled to have anything close to a frost for the next 10 days, according to the 10-day weather report. And by then we should be past the 15th of May. So I think we'll be good. So I stuck it in the ground. Now, interestingly, she gave me a second one. The second one, a very small, ridiculous dog, pulled it out of the pot, dragged it across the backyard. And I found it and I potted it up again. And it was struggling and it was pretty much losing all its leaves. So I cut it way back. And that one is resprouting. So I put that on the other side. There isn't much to show you. It's just a little green stem with a little few side shoots, but it is resprouting. So here's the plan. I'm going to leave it in these 2 square beds and in the middle. And I started others from seed, but the seed hasn't germinated yet. I'm starting to be less optimistic about it germinating, which is also depressing because the seed was very expensive. But nonetheless, it also says it can take 21 days to germinate. So it may still germinate. So we'll see. And if it germinates, then I will put the seedlings around it. If not, I'm going to plant something else around it. So they won't be quite so ridiculous, but hoping at least this year, maybe I can get some more viable seed. And I think this is the last picture. And this popped up in my front yard underneath the forsythia bush. I was looking at the forsythia and I saw these very cool mushrooms. And, mushrooms have their own season and they, mushrooms that you will see at this time of year, you probably are not likely to see at any other time of the year. So I thought this was a very, healthy looking, robust cluster of mushrooms. Remember, the part that we see is the sexual stage and you can pluck them off if you don't like them, if you think, that they take away from wherever it is that they're growing. But the mycelial stage, which grows underground, is by far the bigger part of the plant. And it's really not worth treating in most cases. You don't want to use any kind of fungicide. I'd rather have the mushrooms. They're interesting than to have to live with an unnecessary application of fungicide. So there you have it. All right. So I think is that it? Are we done? Okay. And we're back to me. Oh, and this is a current picture here of what the front part of the front yard looks like, and along the fence, and all of those green things growing along the fence are most of them are climbing hydrangeas, and they are doing really amazingly well. It took them, that was one of the first things that we planted, because the first thing that we did before we could live here and before we, had the house gutted and did all the work, there was a tenant, and the deal was he could stay as long as we could work on the outside. So we took trees down in the backyard so we could have a backyard. We fenced in the whole property. And that fence, when it was new and all wood with nothing in front of it, looked kind of, what would the word be? Just a big old boring, ugly, it was an attractive fence as fences go, but it had no character. It looked sterile. It looked very sterile. So we planted these climbing hydrangeas, and of course they were attractive, but in the last couple of years, they have really kind of taken over and look really very cool. So they're about to bloom, and they're actually growing along the ground as well as up the fence and filling in the bed there. So, but I think it makes a pretty picture and covers the ugly, less than wonderful wooden fence, but does provide plenty of privacy. And on the other side of that fence is where the Garden of Ancient Ruins is. So, all right. So who do we have?
Someone from Milltown. But...
Okay. Can't tell who that is by the words there, because whoever calls speaks to an artificial person. And so
good morning, Peggy. It's Uncle Art.
Oh, it's Uncle Art. You know what it says? It says Ben, Doug, Simon. That's what it says. So okay.
How are you, my dear?
I think I'm really good. I got a fair amount of stuff done this week, which is very exciting. I'm sure if Anne-Marie saw the pictures of those ridiculous.
We just saw them, yeah.
I mean, how weird are they? But I'm not going to cut the flower off. So there it is, this tall, skinny, whatever, but it's blooming. So I thought it was, so we all learned something, that they will survive over the winter. But maybe next year, Uncle Art, if we try that again, I think maybe what I'll do is I will cut it back, in the fall. I'll cut it back in the fall, right, so that it instead of growing tall and turning into a telephone pole, it'll maybe resprout. So it will be a new plant.
Would you mulch it in then?
Well, I kept it in the greenhouse in the pots, and it did just fine, except until the dog pulled it out of the pot and dragged it through the backyard.
I'm calling because tragedy has hit my house.
Oh no! What?
No, namely, a tree from North Brunswick came down, hit my deck, and ripped my precious dogwood in half.
Oh,
so my question is,
when did that happen?
And my question is there any way I can save the dogwood? The one half is good, the other half has been kind of ripped apart.
Oh.
And I know you say you can't trim dogwoods, but it is what it is, and it came with my house. My father gave it to me as a housewarming gift when we moved in. So it has some sentimental value, but
I would say it has
if it's got to go, it's got to go.
It has a lot of sentimental value. Okay, so I have to ask some questions.
Go ahead.
When you say it's split down the middle, did it have a single trunk to begin with, or did it have multiple
No, it had a
trunks?
dual trunk.
It had, what was that?
Two trunks.
Okay, all right.
It split many years ago into two separate trunks.
Okay. So is either trunk reasonably intact?
The one on the right is reasonably attached. The one on the left is kind of ripped apart from about the 15-foot height up or down. It was ripped down. From 15 foot up, it's still intact, but the main branches are broken off.
Okay. Okay. So the one that's damaged, did it snap near the base or did branches just snap off it?
No, branches were ripped off the main trunk.
But the two main trunks are still both there.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So you need to remove anything that's snapped or broken or damaged or scraped or pulled down so the bark is ripped. You need to get rid of anything that's already damaged. And then you need to take a step back and see what you have left. And then you need to shape it. Okay. You're right. Under ordinary circumstances, it's not a good idea to prune your dogwood. And that's because dogwoods are susceptible to so many problems. And every time you prune a tree, you actually are wounding it. I mean, it's just, that's what you're doing. Maybe wounding it is better for the tree in the long run for a lot of different reasons, but basically that's what you're doing. And you're opening it up for different diseases to get in. And since dogwoods are so prone to so many different kinds of diseases, that's why it's not a good idea to prune them. You don't want to give them more opportunity for the disease to get in. But we're going to completely ignore that in this application because we got to save the tree. So then after you take off everything that needs to come off, you need to look at it and see what you have. And you need to try to create a little bit of balance. So you're going to need to go to the other side that wasn't so damaged and take off selective branches. You don't want to make it even right now, but you want to take off some of the branches so the tree is not weighted to that side. So you don't want it on top of everything else. You don't want it tipping. So you want to take some of the branches off from the side that's still in good shape. And selectively, you don't necessarily want to take them back all the way to the trunk. Maybe take them back to a significant side shoot, but you want to take some of the weight off that side. And then what we're trying to do.
Now, do I have to do any sealing?
No.
Paint them with something to seal up the wounds?
Back when I was in graduate school, which was a while ago now, it was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that sealing wounds on trees does more harm than good. And your lovely wife is a nurse, so she is very familiar, I'm sure, with the fact that there are aerobic diseases and anaerobic diseases, especially in your lungs. You get an anaerobic infection in your lungs and you're in serious trouble. And they function in the absence of oxygen, the anaerobic ones. And so while sealing wounds on trees seals them so that the aerobic ones can't get in, the more devious ones get sealed in an anaerobic environment. And so you actually create the perfect environment for the more detrimental, although more scarce, detrimental organisms to have a field day. So no more sealing. We don't do that anymore. So, so you don't have to do that. So that saves that's a whole lot less work. So good. So, but what you really need to do.
This is over 35 foot tall.
Okay. I understand. And
Good morning, Peg.
Hey, Anne-Marie, how are you?
I'm sad because my tree is ruined.
I understand.
But it's not. If I'm standing in my kitchen, you've been in my kitchen, looking out my window, you would not know that anything happened to it because the one side is absolutely perfect. So, and it's not wide as much as it's tall. So I'm like wondering maybe it won't need to be pruned from the side. Just take the broken stuff off.
Well,
because it's not out of shape at all. It's imperfect. You wouldn't know it, honestly.
Well, you're going to need, you need to send me pictures for next week so that I can really, give you an accurate diagnosis and recommendation and,
Dr.
all that.
Peggy?
So a picture, it's worth 1,000 words, but even so, if the one side is missing a ton of branches, even if it looks great from where you are, you need to take some off the other side to just create a little bit of balance. And you can also take it down from the top even though we're talking that it's, 30 feet tall, what you can do is take a step back, get yourself a pole pruner. I have a pole pruner that has a little tiny 8-inch blade chainsaw on the end that, if you want to borrow that, I can lend that to you. And take maybe the tallest branch and follow it down to a good joint where you can reach it either, from the ground with the extended pole chainsaw, and maybe take 1 or 2 of the tallest branches back to make it a little bit shorter. And the reason you want to do that on both sides is, again, to keep balance. And the side that's damaged, if you take it off the top and you bring it down to here, then when it resprouts, it's going to resprout lower. So again, to fill in the parts that are damaged. So,
there's so much damage back there that I'm sure I'm going to have a tree company come in and clean it up. Either North Brunswick pays for it because it's their tree, or I have to do it and everything else. So maybe at the time, whoever the tree company is, maybe I can have them do some trimming for me, because I couldn't possibly get up high enough to do that.
Well, again, I'm not looking at it, so I can't
Right.
say. And
I understand.
and with your, maybe with your new hips, maybe it's not the best thing for you to be doing anyway. But I mean, if
you're right.
you,
I get reminded of that every day from 5 people, my wife and my 4 kids.
okay.
As soon as the tree came down, they said, "You're not doing anything."
So if you have somebody that can, because really, if we're talking about taking the tallest branches back, a human, maybe not you, a human with a pole pruner with a chainsaw might be able to take it back to where it could be reached and take the top, 10 feet off from
Right.
just with a single cut. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay.
With a single cut, you may be able to take the tallest branch back about 10 feet to a joint that you could reach from the ground. Because if it's 30 feet and you take it back, then it's 20 feet. And if you've got a 10-foot extension and you're standing on the ground, you might be able to reach it. So
Okay.
but the only
My
way to
main
know
goal
that is to be looking at it. And if you want to hire someone, of course, that just get somebody who's a certified tree expert that knows what they're doing. I hired a new mowing
Right.
man this week. Okay. And they came when they said they were going to come. They charged a little more money. The first guy that was coming actually never showed up. He was charging less. So, it doesn't matter if he doesn't come. What good is it that he's inexpensive? So these 2 guys showed up, and they were so nice, and they were on time, and they worked hard, and they followed directions. But do you know what the guy said to me? He said, "I'm known as the butcher." He says, "People tell me to cut something down. I just go and I cut it down." And they could not identify any of the plants that I was showing them. I said, "This is this is that. Do you know what this is? Do you know?" They didn't know what anything was. I said, "So if you don't know what it is,
Don't cut.
how do you know how the proper way is to prune it?" And he just looked at me with a blank stare. I said, "Don't cut anything without talking to me. Nothing. Just mow the grass. Don't do anything else without talking to me." I'm telling you this because when you hire somebody, you want to make sure that's not the guy you get, or somebody like that. I mean, anybody can throw a lawnmower in the back of the truck and mow grass. But, so if you get somebody that is a certified tree expert, which is a certificate that people can get, and if they have it, they will promote that they have it. You want to get somebody who knows what they're doing for sure.
Okay.
And
I'll
if you really run into trouble and you think maybe your son or son-in-law or grandson can reach it from the ground, possibly, I'll come out and bring the tool and supervise so that we can get it taken care of, properly and inexpensively. If it's not, send me pictures and then we can make that determination. But
right.
don't just let
Oh.
any old tree person come in and do it. Make sure they know what they're doing, because this tree is important. We want to make sure it gets saved correctly.
How much time do I have to the tree? And the the reason I called is, number one, you've answered my question. It is salvageable. So in the cleanup, I was wondering if it was going to die, or should I just have it taken down? But that's off the table at this point. So thank you so much for that information. But I'll send you some pictures and we'll talk.
Okay. And as far as, it's spring, Uncle Art, it's like everything is bursting forth with buds and flowers and
Right.
pollen and
It's in full bloom. It's beautiful.
right. It's
Even what's still standing is just beautiful. It's in full bloom.
so, all the new growth is still happening. So you want that new growth to be happening, whatever new growth, because obviously there's already been some new growth, whatever additional new growth is going to happen, you want it to happen where it's going to benefit the longevity of the tree.
Right.
So the sooner you cut off like the tallest branches so that the plant doesn't spend any energy making leaves way up here when it's going to get cut over here, the better. So the sooner the better.
Okay.
Does it have to be in the next 10 minutes? No, but I would say, if you could get it done in the next week, it would probably be in the tree.
Oh, definitely. Well, I got such a disaster back there. Something's got to be done in the next couple of days.
So there you go.
I mean, this tree was about 70 foot tall and about 20 inches in diameter.
Well, you're not taking
on
that.
the north side, on the other side of the brook, came across and took everything out.
Yeah, but you're not touching that one.
No, actually, it's dead. It's created a bridge across the brook. I could walk over to North Brunswick now. And
Well-
the worst part is there's a twin to it. It was a twin oak, and they're going to have to address that too. So, but I'll let you go back to your other people calling in. Love you always, and thanks for the info. And Amory says we'll see you soon.
We'll definitely see you soon. And but seriously, if you need me to come out and take a look, if you're like really unsure and you need me to come out and take a look, I'll bring my tools. We can take a look and just let me know.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll get the whole yard cleaned up first.
Okay.
And do some cleanup. So okay, we'll
sounds
talk.
good.
Thanks
All
a
right.
lot for your advice. As always, you're right on target.
Well, thank you so much, Uncle Art. You have a great day, and give that lovely wife of yours a hug for me, okay?
She's been listening all along. I have you on speaker, so thanks, kid.
Okay, talk to you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye-bye. Oh, man. That's why we took down that giant tree in the backyard. Every time, we're in the woods and we have this huge, it's like 4 feet in diameter piece of a tree, and that we saved the piece of the tree where it actually branches into 3 main trunks. They're all cut off, but you can see that it had 3 main trunks, and underneath the 3 main trunks, it's 4 feet in diameter. Thing is huge. So the whole piece from the bottom to the top is like 5 feet. It's about 5 feet tall. Is it taller than that now?
Or is it on a hill? It's pretty
Yeah,
tall.
yeah, it's sort of up on a hill. And I put, one of those tree faces on it. I like tree faces, but I don't like them on live trees because they damage the tree. So, but this was a dead tree, so I put tree face on it. So like it looks like there's an elf living in the tree and the tree's there. But taking it down broke my heart. It broke my heart. But 2 of the main trunks were completely dead, and 1 was very weak. It had foliage, it had branches, but it was right next to the barn. If that thing ever came down, it doesn't matter what was in its path. It was going to just completely destroy everything in its path. So sometimes dead trees need to come down, and that's unfortunate. But there was one tree, a giant beech tree on our street this week. That was even bigger. That had to be at least 5 feet in diameter. And they had been pruning it and trying to save it, and the property was sold, and they did some work on it. And I was so tempted to knock on the door and tell them, that there are a few more things, if they prune it a little bit differently than they've been pruning it, kind of take some of the weight off, take some of the other branches so that they could maybe save it. It's gone. It's almost flush with the ground. It's like a patio. It's so big. It was heartbreaking. But sometimes, when they got to go, they got to go. So, all right. Well, let's see. We should give the phone number again. The phone number is, where is the phone number? 888-399-7344. And we have 4 open lines. And let's, what do we want to do? Oh, let's do the monk's hood. That's not too long, and that's fun. Okay, so we're gonna go. I got a package in the mail this week, and I was like, I didn't order anything, but it was from Brex, and I figured, well, obviously it's addressed to me, and so I must have ordered it, but I didn't remember ordering it. So I opened up the box, and can you see? I ordered it in August, so that's why I didn't remember ordering anything. And it was expensive. It was $33, and it didn't feel like there was like very much in the box. So anyway, so I ordered it, and what it was, you can see it's monk's hood, and it says BOGO next to it, monk's hood BOGO, buy one get one. So actually ended up getting 6 bulbs, and monk's hood is another name for wolfbane, which is why I ordered it. Wolfbane is my cat, and when we found him on the side of the road, not only did I think that wolfbane was a cool name for a cat, but also it was the time we found him at the time of year that monk's hood would be blooming. So another reason why we chose that name. But here's, if you read, it says plant in partial to full shade. So, this is another plant for the woods. I'm trying, and it is a native. They are native to around here, the woodland plants. So it can be like a wildflower. And they are called monk's hood. Well, I have pictures of it further down the road, so I can show you, because it actually has a hooded-like appearance. And this is what I got. And I'm like, okay, 6 of them. What are they? With these kind of weird little tubery bulb things, which end is up, you never really know. You want to make sure you get it right. You think and then you don't know, and then you're not sure. So I did a little research, and that's what I found. I found some other pictures. Clearly, the pointier part goes down. Good to know, right? That's useful information. So the pointier part goes down, and it said to soak them in water for 30 minutes. So I say, okay, well, this is good. So, I'm trying to make the woods, more appealing, but still woodsy. And I got 30 minutes to go find a spot, right? Because I got to soak them for 30 minutes. So I put them in the water, and I went out to the woods, and I found a spot, and I spaced them because, you need to give them some room. And I added compost, and I planted them and covered them, but still have it look woodsy. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, nobody's going to know there's anything here. I mean, they're in the ground. They have a leaf mulch. I added plenty of compost, pulled out a lot of rocks. So we can thank Michael from Metuchen for these. He, when he comes to the plant exchange, he brings chopsticks, and I had a bag of his chopsticks. And so I used them to mark where they were. And that way, when Mowing Man comes, only thing Mowing Man does in the woods is he just mows the path, and he doesn't do it all the time. I figure, he comes every week. If he mows the path once a month, that's plenty, but he needs to know where he can mow and where he can't mow. And since we already know that he calls himself the butcher, and he'll mow, he'll cut anything. This was my idea to mark where these were on the edge of the path. And I weeded, I made it really clear the distinction between what's to the right of the path, which is there's some big giant hostas. That's where the columbine is. There's some ferns. There's some other things growing there. And the path that's going to be mowed. So I tried to make it very distinct. But what's distinct to me may not be distinct to somebody else. So I put these in, and hopefully they will. You can see there's 6 of them marked with the 6 little stakes. So and it's all weeded too, so there's nothing else growing there. which is another clue that it's, been tidied up and there's no other wild things growing in that area. And this is what the flowers look like. And they do bloom. You can see there's a mum in the back blooming, and they bloom in the fall, and they're a purpley blue. Again, another reason why I like them, since, purple, as we all know, is my favorite color. But they also have a really interesting history. They have several names. Monkshood, because of the shape of the flower, and wolfsbane. And you can rub yourself with wolfsbane to keep werewolves away. But it has some other interesting Greek mythology applications, that Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom and war, used aconite to turn the goddess Arachne into a spider, which was really interesting because Athena was also well known for her ability to weave, and Arachne challenged her, that she said she could weave as good as the gods. So Athena got kind of annoyed with that and turned her into a spider using aconite. And Medea tricked one of the kings into killing his son with tea poisoned with aconite, and it is poisonous. So, you don't want to eat it, and you don't want to put it in a place near kids. And if you're handling it, you want to wear gloves. And Medea, who obviously liked using this stuff, Medea's mother, Hecate, is said to have discovered the poison and used it to kill her father. So, and Claudius supposedly was poisoned with aconite by his wife, Agrippa. So, it's got great history. Oh, that's me. I'm still doing buttons here. And that's Arachne doing her weaving, and will be weaving forevermore. Turned into that spider lady using aconite, monkshood. And there have been modern cases of using aconite poison as well. And the first documented homicide case using monkshood or wolfbane happened in 1881, when George Henry Lamson was convicted of murdering his brother-in-law, who was handicapped. But if he died, then his wife would have gotten his share of the family inheritance, which is why he murdered him. And that's it. You can see the close-up of the flower. You can see that it has like a little hood over the top, and that's the name, monkshood. So we've got 6 of them marked with chopsticks. So we'll see. All right, we're going to go to the phones now, and we're going to say good morning to Chris from Scotch Plains. Hey, Chris, we haven't heard from you in a while. How are things?
Good morning, Peggy. Good to talk with you. Basically, everything is going good. Mushroom update. I grew some oyster mushrooms in the straw bale in the fall, and they're still coming out smaller flushes, but we're still getting those. And then I planted something else, wine cap stropharia mushrooms in wood chips in the past, and tried it in the past, didn't work out. This year we did actually get some wine caps, so we've yet to eat them, but looks encouraging. So the mushroom project will continue, though.
Well, send me pictures, Chris. I want pictures.
Well, Peggy, the other thing is the tomato comparison. I think I was telling in a previous call, I was growing the red racers recommended by Bob from Piscataway,
yes,
and the BHNs. I actually did send you pictures for that. I don't know if they came through or not, but I had 2 of each. I had 2 BHNs and 2 of the Bob red racers, one in a wall of water and the other in like a plastic cloche. And surprisingly, the cloche in the wall of water didn't seem to make a big difference, but the red racers discovered by Bob actually have flowers on them now, so it looks pretty encouraging. I don't know what's gonna happen, but at this point, the red racers are racing ahead, so we will see what happens.
So they're appropriately named, is what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I noticed the maturity date on the red racers was pretty short. It was a pretty aggressive time frame. So I grew them last year, had nothing to compare them to, but I know that Bob from Piscataway spoke highly of them. That's why I tried them last year. And, this year time will tell, but, it looks like both are off to a good start. The BHMs also are healthy and hardy. I started them early, and I actually planted them out under protection probably the middle of April, which is kind of aggressive, but it was, only 2 of each. So it is, it is what it is, but they're, all 4 are alive and they're doing well. So we'll see how that happens.
Well, I did not get the picture, so I'm not sure how you sent them, but send them to my phone. I know you have my number. If you send them to my phone, that's the most effective way of me getting them. So, so then we'll show them next week.
I'll try it again. Sometimes I've had phone issues, no doubt about it. But Peggy, the big question of the week, I'd appreciate your opinion. My wife and I are supposed to be going away on vacation all next week. And at this point, I have a bunch of seedlings that I've been hardening off. I have peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants. Looks like the forecast for the week, although it's not super warm, is above freezing. My question is, would I be better off taking a chance and planting them in the ground like Thursday or Friday of this week and hoping for the best, or keeping them in containers under the inexperienced eye of my kids? I'm kind of thinking if they're in the ground, they'll be exposed to some weather, but at least soil moisture will be pretty consistent. My son is good, but he's not experienced with that. He has a lot of things. He'll be taking care of the dog and the cat and the fish. So I'm kind of thinking if I could get them into the ground, they would be safer. Any thoughts on that?
So when would you be putting them in the ground? The end of the week?
Probably Thursday or Friday of this week.
I think you'd be okay. What you need to do is wait until you're ready to plant, and then check the 10-day forecast. Because right now we're looking 10 days in advance, but that's only going to actually, as of right now, give you 2 or 3 days worth of information past when you would be putting them in the ground. So it looks promising. And I'm going to say, if I had to bet money, when on Thursday you are ready to plant and you check, you're going to get 10 days of temperatures that are going to stay in the 40s. And I think that you're going to be okay, especially if they're properly hardened off. But I would hold off making that decision until then, because then you'll be able to see the whole time that you're away, which you can't see right now. And it's not out of the question for temperatures to drop again. Still not, we hope it doesn't, but it's not out of the question. So, so wait until then and then make your decision. And if it says for the next 10 days, temperatures are not going to go below, 42 or whatever it is, then you stick them in the ground and off you go. And if it says that there's any possibility that the temperature is going to drop below 40, which isn't freezing, but if it says the temperature is going to drop below 40, then you've got a much better chance that it's going to drop further, and even doesn't even necessarily have to go all the way down to freezing for there to be some cold damage. It won't maybe freeze it, wouldn't kill it, but you could still have cold damage. So I would wait until then and make the decision. You're probably going to be okay. You're probably going to be able to get them in the ground. But if it shows a day, you're going to be glad you didn't plant them.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. And I'll have a contingency plan. If I do, I'll have some like roll covers or sheets or something for them to throw over in case things get unexpectedly cold. But I appreciate that. And just a mention about the wolfsbane. I started that many, many years ago. My woods area is kind of similar to yours. I planted them, forgotten them, and they remind me. They come up and bloom in the fall every year, like reliably in September. I only have a couple of plants. I wish I had more. Maybe I could get some this year, but they're good. They're low maintenance. They do well in the shade. I do virtually nothing except appreciate the flowers. So yeah, sort of like an under-recognized plant, but they're very nice though.
Yeah, I became familiar with them many years ago when I lived in New Brunswick, which was, you know, even before Blooming Acres. And I had an alleyway that was between my house and my neighbors. And my part of the alleyway was sidewalk, but their part of the alleyway was a bed. And they could not get to their part of the alleyway without walking on my sidewalk. And so I asked them if I could plant, because that was my side door in and out of the house, and there was nothing there. And it got about an hour of sun every day when the sun was directly overhead. It was like real sun for about an hour, and then of course, you know, continued to move, and there weren't any trees blocking it, so it wasn't dark, but it wasn't bright. And I put a whole bunch of monkshood in there, and they were spectacular. They were spectacular, and they came back every year and did really well. So I never planted them at Blooming Acres because I had 10 acres with no trees. 10 when we bought it. It was 10 acres of open, flat, because it had been a cow farm, you know, cattle. They did dairy, and so there was nothing. There was no shade. There was no shade any place on the property. And we started planting trees and, you know, turned part of it into an arboretum. But so I kind of forgot all about the monkshood because they were, you know, they weren't going to grow anyplace there. So I never planted them again. But now, as you know, I have woods. And so there you go. So they're back. So I will take a picture and see how they do. But even the foliage is interesting. So I will take pictures of it when the foliage emerges. And as long as my new mowing man leaves them alone, we should be good.
Yeah. And on the positive side, at this point, my yard, the back part of the yard is fenced in. But even when it wasn't, the deer seem to leave them alone. So for people with deer issues, you know, it's certainly a viable alternative.
Well, that absolutely makes sense because they are totally poisonous and deer won't eat them. So, you know, the pro is deer won't eat them. The con is, you know, if you have pets that nibble on plants or little kids, maybe it's not such a great idea. But my dogs don't tend to bother stuff that's in the ground usually. And so I'm hoping that, and besides, they're on the other side of the fence. They're in the woods part of the yard, not the backyard. And I keep that gate closed unless, you know, we feel like walking back there. So you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, the fact that they're poisonous is why the deer don't eat them. So there's pros and cons to everything, Chris, you know, there's a good side and a bad side.
Absolutely. Good speaking with you again, Peggy. And when I get back from my trip, I'll keep you posted on the progress.
We'll have a wonderful time.
Thanks so very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye now. All right. We're going to go have a little chat now with Mary from Warren. Hey, Mary. How you doing? Mary? Mary, are you there? Yes.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, we're having a button trouble. Not, wait a minute. I want to be clear. It's not a problem with my new purple buttons. My purple buttons are fine. I love my purple buttons. It's his buttons that we're struggling with. My buttons are fine. So what can I do for you?
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say Chris was concerned about putting some of those tomatoes and peppers out. And one of the things that my sister does is she takes, you know, like you always have bigger black pots from things that you've bought to plant, and she cuts the bottom out of them and puts it over the plant if she puts it out early. And it kind of gives it some protection from the wind and a little bit from the cold. And since they're black, maybe they warm up a little bit during the day and help to keep them a little bit warmer at night. But that's been pretty successful with that.
Well, that's interesting. I bet that works, you know? Yeah. And, you know, as an intermediate step between, you know, when you put them in the ground, when you're trying to put them in the ground early and when it's safe. That's an interesting idea. So thanks for sharing. Well, you always have cool ideas. All right.
Yeah,
Everything
I
else
was
good?
like, oh, everything's good. I'm trying to get. We got a lot of stuff in at the garden. All our cold stuff is in, and the tomatoes and stuff want to be in, but we got burnt last year with that freeze, so we're not putting anybody in yet.
Yeah, I'm holding off
We still
also.
have,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad you mentioned the cold crops because I have a little slideshow, something that we did that I'm trying something a little bit different. So so stay tuned for that, okay? Because we're going to do that next. No, not next week. We're
Oh,
going to do it
okay,
now. We're
yeah,
going to
oh,
run
great.
over. We're going to do it now.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's something people would need to be doing now. So I don't want to wait. I know we're past the hour, but okay.
Which one is it?
Oh, the veggies.
Okay.
So we're going to do this veggie thing before we
You want to leave Mary on?
Mary, you want to stay on in case you have some comments?
That
Okay.
either way.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
excited
it's
to
always
see
fun
what
to
you've
have
got.
somebody to chat with about these things. So I was growing broccoli and cauliflower. Actually, I put my broccoli and cauliflower plants out too early and they all got zapped. So I had to go buy new plants, which was very upsetting to me, but that's what I had to do. So here's what I did. So I made the beds, and in the past, I've always grown 6 broccolis and 6 cauliflowers, and the broccolis and the cauliflowers, they all come in at the same time. And we cannot eat 6 heads of, when we had the kids home, it wasn't a problem, but that's too many. And I ended up feeling like I was wasting some of it. So I decided to do 4 and 4. So that's what I did. But then I got the seed. I had leftover seed. So I collected the seed and then we're back to using chopsticks. And you see what I did? I marked with 4 chopsticks. And where I put the chopsticks, I put a small smattering of seeds. So I did 4 places where I planted seeds of broccoli and 4 places where I planted seeds of the cauliflower. Oh, well, that's so here's what I'm thinking, Mary, that if they come up, they'll come up. They should germinate pretty quickly at this time of year, but I've got the plants in, and then I will stagger the harvest and they'll come up later so that I don't get all the broccoli and all the cauliflower at the same time. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's a great idea because, how many heads of cauliflower can you eat in 1 week?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I thought this would be a way of, staggering them and seeing if they, come up later. And and that way I can treat the bed the same way and spread it all out. So I just did that this week, but I thought it was a good idea. But the other thing is, and the reason that I wanted to, even though we're going overtime, I wanted to show it now is you don't want your broccoli and your cauliflower to come up too late in the season because they don't like the heat. So if somebody wanted to consider trying this, you need to try it now or as soon as possible. So that's why we're doing this. Tommy had wanted to wait till next week, but no, I wanted to do it now. But also I put my parsley in, which, is good because I like to have, I use parsley a lot. I especially like to use it to dress my baba ganoush. So I was making that and I had no parsley this week. So I got mad at myself. And here's the peas. Peas are doing very well, but this is interesting. This is the far at one end of the pea bed, and this is the other end of the pea bed. And Mary, can you see the problem I was having?
I'm not seeing the pea. Oh, I'm seeing the parsley. I think I'm a little behind you here. Oh,
So the peas on the one end of the bed were looking really good and they were growing and they were attaching to the fence. But on the other end, the peas couldn't reach the fence and they were laying down on the ground. So what I did,
that's not good.
so I got more chopsticks out. And I supported each of the little plants that was laying on the ground with a chopstick just long enough. So I'm hoping that it'll just hold them up there until they can reach the fence. What do you think?
I like that idea. That's great because that'll hold them up, and they'll get those little tendrils going up there.
And that's what I was thinking, because the other end, the ground is not even, so that's why the fence is the way it is. And on this end, we have the railroad ties, and on the other end, we don't need the railroad ties because the ground slopes away. So I'm hoping that the little chopsticks will give them just enough support so they can reach the fence. But they're growing very nicely, and peas and cheese sandwiches are in my very near future. And this is the potatoes.
Yes.
Potatoes are doing really well. It's the blue potatoes on the right of the picture and the Yukon Golds on the left of the picture. The Yukon Golds seem to be a little bit more robust. And you can actually see, can you see, Mary, that there's a slight difference in the color? The blue ones seem to be a little darker. I don't know if that's, because the potatoes are blue.
It does come up that.
So you can see a distinction there, but they seem to be doing really very well. I'm excited about that. And look at that. Look at that. We have been eating asparagus, purple asparagus. Now, the purple asparagus plants have been in the ground, and we've been harvesting for a couple of years now, and we've been eating asparagus this week for sure. But they did not come up as robustly as I had hoped originally. And so they start to come up from seed, and I'm just going to let them grow. So these are seedlings that came up from the plants, and the bed was kind of skimpy. And after this, I don't think the bed's going to be skimpy. What do you think?
Yeah, I never had purple asparagus.
Well, I'm not even sure that the ones coming up from seed are going to be purple anymore. And when you cook them, they turn green, just like the purple green beans turn green, and the purple okra or the red okra turns green. When you cook it, it turns green, but it's really pretty in the garden. And all of these coming up from seed, well, they're all asparagus, so we'll see what they turn into, but hoping my bed will not be skimpy anymore after this. And I think that's it, right? Is that the end? So that's what's going on in the veggie garden. But I wanted you to see the broccoli thing, because I think that's a little different, and I think that has potential.
I like that idea, because you do kind of like to spread your harvest out a little bit.
So that's what we're trying to do. Everything else good? Remember, Plant Exchange is May 25th. So I just gotta, remind everybody.
Yep, it's on my calendar.
So
I'm definitely heading down.
Well,
and Eileen and I are going to come and help you with some stuff prior to that on that Wednesday, but we'll touch base about that when we get closer.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I don't have Jordan this year, so I've been working my husband a little bit harder as a result. So, but there's always plenty to do. So, but I'm excited. You know what I'm going to have this year that I didn't have? I'll have the chess sets already. Chess sets finished, so I'll have that on display, and people can play it if they so choose, or just admire it, or make fun of me, whatever whatever tickles their fancy. All right, Mary from Warren, you have a great day.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing that tip.
Too.
And we will talk again soon.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks for calling. All right. Bye-bye now. Well, there are so many things I would like to be showing and sharing, but we're like way over time at this point. Should we do one more little? Do you want to do the video of or do you want to save that till next week? Save it for next week. Okay. So I did prune one of the Christmas trees to be a trellis, but since I don't really need to plant it yet, we can that one can hold off. The broccoli couldn't, because you need to do that now if you're going to do it. So enjoy this very busy time of year. I hope Chris has a great vacation. So I guess we won't be talking to him next week. And Uncle Art and Anne-Marie, if you need me, call me. And I will be here next week, same time, same place. Next week is Mother's Day. So that's big. We're celebrating Tuesday night. Actually, my family's coming, and my kids are making me dinner on Tuesday. So that'll be fun. So until then, have a good one. Bye-bye.